Hello everyone, you're watching Global Leaders Network WINTV. I'm your host, Yun. There are many leaders globally in areas such as government, business, non-profit organization, and also our industry, education, and etc. Global Leaders Network invites these leaders and shares their inspirational stories. Today, I invited Jim Durkin, House Minority Leader. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much. And thank you for this invitation.
You're welcome. Can you tell us about yourself a little bit?
Certainly. I live in the west suburbs of Chicago, in the village of Western Springs. I was born and raised in the western suburbs with myself and my 7 brothers. 8 boys, no girls. But I often tell everybody all 8 of us went to the same grammar school, high school, but all 8 of us graduated from college. 5 of us, including myself, are attorneys, and I have 3 other brothers who are in the business community working. So we all live in the area. I'm a father. I have 4 daughters and a little dog. So, I'm a lawyer by trade, as I said, and I was a prosecutor in Chicago back years ago, and then I've been in the House of Representatives for almost 20 years. And for the past 5.5 years, I have been the Republican leader in the Illinois House of Representatives. It's a job that I love the job. It has a lot of challenges, but it's very important for me as a Republican to make sure that we have a strong voice throughout the state of Illinois, and particularly in Springfield.
I see. What was your dream when you were young?
It had nothing to do with being in the legislature, and it had nothing to do with being a lawyer. I love basketball, and I still do, but I can't play as much anymore. I don't play because I'm a little bit older. My dream job was to play in the Olympics. When I was a little boy in grammar school, I remember watching the United States Olympic basketball teams, and I was a pretty good basketball player back in the day, but it was my dream job would be to play in the Olympics and also play in the National Basketball Association. It didn't quite work out that way. So, but I loved playing basketball. I played through grammar school and high school, and I played a little bit in college, but I decided that my path was to follow my brothers who were prosecutors in Chicago, and I loved their job. I loved the responsibility that they had, but they were able to bring justice and closure to victims of crime, and I wanted to do the same thing. So I decided that I was going to go down the path of becoming a lawyer and hopefully being a prosecutor, which I eventually did.
But what made you to become a politician then?
Well, I would say I didn't really take much interest in politics as a young man. Back then, boys had other interests back in their 20s. I would say the issue when Ronald Reagan came on the scene, and when he ran against President Carter, it made me really think more about the country and what I believe in this country. And as I've often told many people, what really changed my position and my attitude towards government is when the United States Embassy in Tehran was overtaken by radicals, and our citizens were held hostage for hundreds of days. And it really frightened me, but it frightened me to a core that our country, as great as it is, that another country of radicals are holding our citizens for hostage, and we weren't able to bring them home. And Ronald Reagan defeated President Carter, and soon after that, the hostages were released. Some people have said it's more of President Carter who negotiated it, but it was under President Reagan. I was a young man, and he made me feel good about the country. He made me feel good about being an American, and I started looking more into what his beliefs were as a Republican, and I aligned myself with that. And I felt that this is the path that I'm going to take, and the way that he approaches government and thinks what the responsibility of government is are the things that I believe in. So I ran for a school board shortly after that. And I saw some very excessive actions by a school board who had what really motivated me to run. This is in the early 1990s. It was a junior college board, and the board members at that college had given themselves American Express gold cards that were being paid by taxpayers. And I was looking into the bills that they were charging, and it was just extravagant. And I'm like, this is not right. It's wrong. So I ran for the school board with the idea that if I win, I'm going to eliminate the gold cards for all the board members. And I won.
Wow.
And then I got rid of the gold cards, the first thing that I did as a board member. So this light bulb went off in my head, thinking that, you know what, if you run for office, it doesn't make a difference if it's for the park district or if it's for a school board, and you believe in something and you follow through, you can get things done. And so that was, from that moment on, I felt that, you know what, you can actually do more than complain like a lot of people do, and they don't follow through.
Right.
I felt that this is an opportunity for me to take my commitment towards public service even further. So from then, now it's turned into, you know, a very interesting career. I was the nominee for United States Senate in 2002. I lost the general election, but I ran 2 presidential campaigns in Illinois for U.S. Senator John McCain. He was a personal friend of mine. And I've been involved with many other very important things in the state government. I was very involved with the impeachment of and removal of Governor Blagojevich from Illinois. I was in the middle of all that. So I've had a great career. But it was that first moment where I decided that I was going to get rid of the credit cards, the gold cards from American Express. And for me to actually accomplish that and to follow through, it just made me believe if I can do it for the gold cards, I can do it for other things and solve problems or make tough decisions, but the right decisions for taxpayers of Illinois.
What are the core values of Republican Party?
We are a government. Our party, our values haven't changed. We respect, less government intrusion in our business community and in people's lives. There's that old, it goes back. Life, liberty, and prosperity and property. Those are things that we respect. Right. Republicans are. We believe in the sanctity of life. We believe that businesses should be given the opportunity to thrive without government intruding on them. We believe that there should be limited taxation. But if we are going to tax a person or a business, I would hope that they would see that there is a return on that. We call it the investment that they make in state government. So to me, my biggest priority is fixing the economy of Illinois, making sure that we have a state government that is not spending unwisely, and that if a state government is behind on paying their bills to vendors, that we do everything we can to reduce those outstanding bills. But the core priorities have never changed. We believe that less government, less taxes is our core value and our core idea of how we should move forward. So the state of Illinois' biggest problems are its financial problems and the amount of debt that we have. And to me, I don't believe that we should be constantly asking families, men and women, young adults, and businesses to bail out Illinois because of poor decisions they've made over the years, or not making the right decisions at the right time. Because we're in a position right now where we have a significant amount of a public pension debt. We have this, as I said earlier, a large amount of outstanding bills that we haven't paid, and that's due to poor budgeting and poor spending over the years, which the Republicans have opposed, but the Democrats like to spend more, and that's just their philosophy. We believe that if we have the money, we'll spend, but we can't spend money on programs which we can't afford. To me, that is the single biggest division between Republicans and Democrats in Springfield.
Tell us about the FAIR map and graduate income tax, and where do you stand?
I am for the FAIR map. It is it's an issue that should be on the. I would hope that at some point we can get that on the have it placed on the ballot for a referendum for voters to make a decision if the legislative districts, the Illinois House, the Illinois Senate, and the congressional districts should be taken out of the hands of the political leaders. That's been the case and the rule of law for many decades. What it means is that who's ever in the majority can draw a district, and basically we call it gerrymandering, in which it will ensure that the majority party will keep that seat in the Democrat hands based on how they've analyzed the district and how many registered Democrats are in a certain area. But it ensures 10 years of power by one party. That to me is that would be the greatest reform that we could do in Illinois government, is taking the power of drawing legislative districts and Senate districts and congressional districts out of the hands of the political leaders and giving it to an independent group to make decisions that are best based on demographic changes, but changes that are going to be made not based on political partisan reasons, but based on what our courts have said, that what is fair and how there's been population shifts, and where to avoid the issue of gerrymandering, which gives too much power towards one party. I have seen districts, if you look on the map, they look like a golf club, where it's a long, skinny area, and then it's wide in the bottom. It's long and skinny in the Republican areas, but in the bottom it's all Democrats. But it's a very strange thing, but it's not right. It's been complained about for years. I support the fair map, and I and my colleagues have, over the past few years, have introduced constitutional amendments to be brought for a debate, so it can be placed in the ballot. But the Democrats will not make those changes, and that to me is disappointing. The public wants to see, I think, greater transparency in government, and the map-making process is not transparent. It should not be left to bureaucrats and elected officials in Springfield. So I am very strongly in support of that, and I hope that someday we can ask the voters of Illinois whether or not this is something that they would like to see. The fair tax, I call it the unfair tax. I opposed it, as did all Republicans in the House of Representatives. But the Democrats had enough votes to be able to have it placed on the ballot in 2020 for Illinois citizens to decide whether or not they wanted to change from a flat tax, which is currently the law right now, we're at 4.95%, to a graduated system, something similar that we pay on the federal basis, in which people based on their earnings will pay a different rate. To me, that is, I think, very dangerous. The governor has made a point of campaigning on the fair tax and has made a substantial investment on getting the bill, or get the constitutional amendment on the ballot for 2020. We're going to oppose it, the Republicans, and other people like us will be opposing it over the next year and a half. The fair tax, to me, allows basically we call it a blank check for the Democrat leaders to change the tax rates based on whatever their spending requirements are. It gives them more authority to take more money away from Illinoisans. It does not support small businesses in Illinois. They would be unfairly targeted by that. And eventually, if this does become the law, within time, it'll be a huge tax increase on the middle class. And to me, I've studied this, I've looked at other states, and ultimately the middle class will bear most of the responsibility to pay under this program, and that's not right. The purpose of the flat tax is that's the only taxpayer protection we have against a out of control or a rogue government who is intent upon spending and spending more money and not making wise investments. So I hope the citizens of Illinois will take a step back and realize that it's really not a fair tax. And it is, I call it the unfair tax, because the Illinoisans will pay dearly over time, and it's not going to be the high wealth earners, because they're just going to leave Illinois. And those people that are being targeted, it's easy to say, let's tax the billionaires and the multimillionaires. But you know what? When their tax rates become that high, what do? You go to another state. The Constitution doesn't require you to live in the state of Illinois for the rest of your life. They're going to leave. So who's going to be left paying that money? They're going to have to lower the income rates to the middle class to be able to pick up the difference when people leave. But to me, the most disturbing part of it is that I know within the Korean community, it thrives upon the small businessman and the small businesswoman. There is no protection for them. They will be unfairly treated on this. And I think that would be the greatest tragedy in this if the fair tax does become the law of Illinois. And the backbone of our, everybody says this in the United States, and it's very true. The backbone of our economy is the small businessman and the small businesswoman who work tirelessly to provide a product for our communities, but also put people to work. They're employers, but they're being unfairly treated in this. And I hope that people watching this realize that this is ultimately, it's a bad idea for them. It will not help them. It will not help their children or their grandchildren. So I'm for the fair map, but I'm very strongly against the fair tax. I call it the unfair tax.
Tell us about the traits of a good leader and bad leader.
Oh boy. Traits of a good leader is one who listens. And one who does more, not only listens, but follows through. And I like to think that I have the ability to listen, but also, as I said earlier, respect the priorities of men and women in the legislature who come from a different area from me. Now, when I ran for the U.S. Senate in 2002, all I did was travel the states, met with people in Chicago, the suburbs, the collar counties, the communities along the Mississippi River, and all the way to deep south of Illinois, talking to them about what's important for them, what is a regional priority for them. And I did that, and it gave me a greater perspective of the state about what's important, but also it just made me really think hard that even though I feel that what I think about certain issues based on living in the suburbs are important, people who live in Southern Illinois completely disagree with me. And that's okay. That's the way it should be. But for me, the greatest trait is to make sure that everyone has a voice and that you respect what they have to say about what's important in their district. I can't dismiss it. So I've got to be able to find a way how I can help them advance that issue, even though I probably disagree with it. But my job is to help Republicans to achieve their legislative goals. I also got to help them get elected too. And that requires a lot of work, a lot of fundraising. And but I look at my job as that it's a very large partnership in which I'm a partner with all the Republicans in the House of Representatives. I just have a little more responsibility than the others. I would say a bad leader is somebody who basically just dictates, tells people how to vote, doesn't give them a chance to really explain why they disagree or why they can't vote on a certain issue. And if they do vote a way that's not consistent with that leader, you don't punish them. And sometimes that to me is a sign of a bad leader, is to exact retribution against them for not agreeing with them on an issue. So I believe that everyone is down there. You're an adult. You've made decisions in your life. You're down to represent your district. And my responsibilities and the best that I can do is to encourage them to vote a certain way. And I may disagree with their vote, but the fact is, they're adults, they have to make the decision, and if they can defend their vote, that's fine. But I'm not going to, I'm not a person that is going to go too far and saying that you're wrong and that because of your vote, you are going to be punished by Republicans or do something along those lines. Because it happens all the time, whether it's in Washington or if it's in city councils. Sometimes people vote a way that you don't like, but you have to be able to just move on because there's going to be another issue. And you try to restore the relationship and try to figure out if it's truly just an issue that is bad in their district, or if they, for whatever reason, they chose that they did not support me or other members of the caucus. I just got to pick up the pieces and work on another issue and get them back into the fold. So I mean, that's the important thing, is never to exclude anybody, and you just got to, there's an expression called you win with addition and not subtraction. So that's the way I look at it.
I see.
So a leader, I would say their best trait is to listen and to be fair and honest, but also to help others achieve what they were sent to the Capitol for.
How can we improve Republican Party then?
Well, one, it would be important to have a fair map. We'll be doing that. Reapportionment comes up in 2 years. Now, the governor has stated that he will not support an unfair, politically drawn map. So we'll see if he follows through with that. But the important part for the Republican Party to restore is what we believe goes back to our core principles about the role of government, particularly on taxation, and our way in which we have been unfairly treating taxpayers over the years. Our statements have to be bolder, stronger, and we have to be able to translate what the Democrats have done with state spending and how that has affected them and the services that they generally provide for from state government. We also need to recruit good candidates. It's tough to find people to run for office. And so we have to be able to recruit strong candidates, but also we need to be more diverse.
Right.
And it can't be just a Republican Party of a bunch of male white guys, Caucasians like me. It should not be the Republican Party. We need to have strong women. We need to have strong men and women from different demographics in the state of Illinois, Africans, Americans, Asians. I wish we can do more of that, and we have to do more of that to get them involved, because you'll find that a lot of these communities, their values are not that different from us. They're strong family, they have strong family values, but also have great appreciation, and a lot of them are small businessmen and women who come from countries where perhaps that was more of a dictator type of country, and communist rule, and also taxation for no good reason, and taxation which they never felt that there was any, they never saw anything positive which came from them paying taxes for the hard work they do. So the Republican Party needs to expand. That's important, and we have to be able to reaffirm, I will say mainly, our position on the role of government when it comes to taxation, and how we believe that our economy is important, and that if we're going to eliminate and reduce unemployment, we have to respect the employers of Illinois, large and small. We can't keep telling them how to run their business, and that's what the Democrats do in Springfield all the time. They micromanage the business operations, and what they do is that it costs money, it forces more spending. Like I said, it costs more money, and it also forces them to have to lay off people or not make more investment. That's why we have businesses and families leaving Illinois, because we're overtaxed, we're overregulated, and it's becoming apparent because people have left this state, and they will continue to leave this state unless we make these changes, such as fair map. Also, we need to defeat the fair tax. The unfair tax should not become the law of Illinois. That, to me, will be one of the most tragic parts of the state. Now, it sounds great. People said, let's tax the rich, but there's an expression that also goes on that there's no good way to do the wrong thing. And the wrong thing is the tax. I call it unfair tax. I have a hard time calling it a fair tax, but in my mind, it's not a fair tax. So that's what we have to do. But the Republicans need to be strong. People need to step up and say that I want to be part of this process, whether it's as a volunteer, helping out, educating people in the communities, being a precinct captain, or working for the parties locally or at the state party, or maybe even saying that I'd like to run for office. Because I can't look into the magic ball and say that this person is going to be a great candidate. Sometimes people just come to us and say that, I'm angry, I don't like the way things are going, I want to make a difference. So I would like to run for office. So those are ways in which people can be supportive, but the Republican Party will never lose its way. We are going to be the champions of families, we're going to be the champions of employers, we're going to be pro-education, making sure that children have an opportunity, that parents have a choice in education. And that, to me, is very important, school choice. Those are principles the Republican Party will never abandon.
I see. How can we make a better society then?
How can we make a better society? Be vocal.
Vocal.
Meet your legislators, your congressmen and women. People always say, what's the best way of getting your message across to members of the legislature or Congress? You show up in their office. You confront them. Not confront them, you talk to them, and you ask them why they voted a certain way. Legislators often, when they hear that someone tells them, I voted for you, or I didn't vote for you because of that, because you voted a certain way. That gets their attention. A better society is one where there is a balance between, as I mentioned earlier, in government, where we can actually compromise on certain matters. Compromise isn't a bad thing. Compromise means nobody gets everything, but everybody gets something. And that's what people would like to see. They don't like the political fighting. The public doesn't like that. I don't like that. But that's what, if people were more reasonable with their positions, that they don't use their power to their advantage. And to me, that makes it for a better society. But I will, as I said earlier, you should hold public officials accountable for the actions that they have already taken or ones they may take. I would ask people who are watching this to find out who their state senator is and their state representative. And if they don't agree with the fair tax, you should ask them, why did you vote for this? Because it's already, members of the legislature voted for it. Because if they need to study and research the issue, but ultimately this is a tax that will affect the middle class, members of the legislature need to know where people stand on issues, and they need to be reminded. And there's nothing wrong with saying that I disagree with you, and that your position is definitely opposite of mine, but they need to understand that, you know, legislators are there to listen. And we make decisions not only based on what we think, but also what our constituents think. But the constituents have to get in and they have to tell. Just remember, voting rights in the United States are the most powerful rights you can have. You make a decision on whether or not who's going to make ultimate decisions for you as a country and also as a state. So everybody should respect their vote. They should vote, but they should also they should get to know the people that are representing them and make an informed decision of whether or not they're doing their jobs right. And if they aren't, throw them out. If they're doing a good job, keep them in. But the only way to do it, I think, is to get to know them, find out who they are.
Right, I see. Do you have any comments to our audiences today?
Well, this is a real pleasure. I've never been on this program. I've had limited contact with the Korean community. I'd like to do this more because I feel that a lot of what I know about the Korean community, I think that their core values are not that much different than Republican core values. And I think it's important to know that that the Korean community knows that there are Republicans that believe in them and that the votes that we take reflect their priorities. And it's a great state. Illinois is a great state. It's very diverse. But we do have challenges. And I want to make sure that the Korean voice is heard. Koreans visit me in Springfield. Members of their business community come down and see me often. And I think it's important that they do that. So I'm going to continue to do that. And I would like to, at least for your viewers, to know that, again, our values are very similar. We stand up for them in Springfield, and we make decisions that we think are right for our business community, large and small, and also for families. So it's sometimes the process is not that great, and sometimes the result is not what we had hoped for. But there are people down there who are fighting for them and that believe in them, and I hope that they would feel the same about myself as Republicans or Democrats who feel that government should not be intruding on too far into people's lives, their businesses, and also that there should not be a government which overtaxes and does not spend your taxpayer money wisely.
I see. Thank you for coming and sharing
pleasure.
your stories.
It's been a great joy, real pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for watching Global Leaders Network WINTV. I'm Young. I want to see all of you until next Thursday, 9 p.m. And until then, you have a great week. And if you want to watch this again, please watch this through our YouTube or our channel. Until then, have a great week. Bye-bye.